It's an honor indeed to speak on this symposium. And the question today is obviously, what can culture do? What can art and culture do? And that brings me back to my first museum visit. It's obviously the Amsterdam Rijksmuseum. I remember that very good indeed. I was 12 and coming from the north of Holland in Groningen, Veendam, small town. It took a 3-hour bus ride to go to the big city of Amsterdam. You have to imagine it's a bus full of bouncy young boys and girls, and they were going to that big city. And when entering that city, I remember very good the first big building that we saw stepping out of the bus, and that was the majestic Rijksmuseum. And I also remember going up the stairs. You have these enormous stairs, like in many other national museums, going up that stairs and going to the Gallery of Honor. And at the end of the Gallery of Honor, you see obviously the largest painting I've seen in my life at that age, and that was The Night Watch by Rembrandt. And I also remember what a teacher told us. He said, and he talked a bit like this, "Boys and girls, this is the most important painting in the whole world." And we said, oh my gosh. Of course, you believe your teacher at that age, because at that age you believe anything a teacher tells you. So that was the art history lesson of that day. And after that we were set free, and we could have, let's say, 30 minutes more in the museum. But what do you do when you're 12 and you're in a big museum and you are a boy? You start running. And I remember starting running through the endless galleries. And I also remember a hand on my shoulder from a guard, a friendly guard, who said, "Hey boys, don't run, you have to behave. It's a museum, and you don't run in a museum. You have to look at the paintings." And I remember as well that we looked at the paintings, and there was a portrait, though I can't remember which portrait it actually was, but I remember there was a sitter, a person on that portrait, looking back at me. So I was looking at that painting, and the painting looks back. The guy on the painting looked back. And I said, wow. And that moment, it opened my eyes. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that proves what a museum and what art and culture can do. It can open up your eyes. And that is that museums are bridges, and they connect art and history. And museums are the gateways, indeed, to art and history. It can make moments that you can connect. You can connect with other people, you can connect with art and culture, you can connect with your own imagination, and you can connect with creativity. And obviously that's all very important, and museums can do that. And later on I became the museum director. Here you see the glorious moment of the reopening in 2013. I'm on the left, the Queen is on the right. And there it goes. It was a big firework. We didn't do a rehearsal, so I was a bit, oh my gosh, we're up to the next renovation. But it worked out very well, and we entered the museum, and it was all there. So that was a good moment. And there the audience came, and here you see what a museum is doing today. It's exactly the same thing as centuries ago. It brings art and culture together. A museum is a bridge between art and people, as you can see here. And to quote Neil McGregor, if you do it well as a museum should be everybody's private collection. And to do that, I have some ideas, and I know that these ideas, mostly the internet, was very inspirational for Martin, and we discussed a lot about this. And here you see how a museum visit today goes on. Young people, and they are connected with the art, because that museum is still the place to connect, to tell stories. Though they look at what is called an old master painting, we tried in the Rijksmuseum, because old masters is a term that I dislike, because I think that old masters are just young artists from another era. And they, if they are good, to me is all art, you can say, is contemporary. You can let them speak to an audience, and the trick is to give the audience tools and languages to let the works of art speak to a contemporary audience. I have a small video.
Will you go out with me tonight? Lose it on a disco floor. Take the night bus with me tonight. Frost on the window. It's freezing out here on the pavement, but here in your arms, it's heaven. I can wait for you now, not forever.
I've tried everything I know to make you understand. This is not a game for broken hearts played by a lonely band. We both got so much to lose, but here in your arms, it's heaven. I can wait for you now, not forever.
I was surprised by how happy I was.
No, that's why it's just become.
Down by the harbor in the dark.
Here you saw what happens. Thank you. On the video, you saw what happens if you open the collection, because open is the key word of my presentation. Open the museum, of course, I mean the building first. Open the attitude of the people working there. And third, open the collection. So open, open, open. That's the whole mantra of a museum nowadays in the 21st century. And open to all. And if you open the collection, you of course need the internet nowadays, because the internet is now, let's say, 25, 30 years old. The Apple iPhone was introduced only 12 years ago. And we now realize, not even to its full extent, that the internet is much more than technology. Open access is in the heart of the web. And I think that open access is the way to go, because this really gives a dream of participation. And if you use this internet and the whole ideology of internet, to put it in that words, then you have the ideal partner for a museum that really wants to open up the collection and open up the attitude and open up the things we have. And if you do that, and we did it in the Rijksmuseum in the most radical way, so we have all the objects on the internet, free for all, free without copyrights, without any regulations, free even for commercial use. And the idea is simple, that if you do that, you have the, I had the vision that anywhere in the world, somebody is somehow engaged with an object from the Rijksmuseum. And indeed, that is exactly what happened. So the video clip was made by Christian Borslap, who used it for pop music. But here's a fashion designer who was inspired by the masterworks of the Rijksmuseum collection, and she made this beautiful collection of dresses. But you can also imagine what happens. I mean, I'm from Holland and we drink a lot of milk. So what happens if the masterworks of the Rijksmuseum are used on milk cartons, as you see them here? And the grocery shop is Albert Heijn, the largest in the Netherlands. They asked us, how much do we pay and what's the copyright restrictions and so on and so on. And we said, no, it's free, you can have them. You can have as much as you want. So not only the milk made by Vermeer, which is obviously the number one, and that's the image where they came from and where this project started with. But you can have the milk made by Vermeer. But you can have Rembrandts, you can have Dick Bruna, you can have, you can have the whole collection. And that's exactly what they did. So you have to imagine that millions and millions of these milk cartons have been used day in, day after day. And I mean, for me as a museum director, I mean, this is free propaganda, right? So if you use that and imagine that somewhere on a Dutch table, people use this and have our collection in their refrigerator, I think that's a crazy idea. So that's what we did, and that was all because of that internet. What we did with the internet is we were one of the darling projects of Google. I'm sorry that Georgina Abaltino is not in the audience, but thanks to the Google Art project, we were able to use the Google Street View technique to scan the paintings and to photograph the objects. And that's one thing. So the imagery was of the highest quality. Second, we use, as you can see in the corner, we use the language of social media. So collect, delete, share, just by very simple icons. And everybody can relate to this very easy language of visuals and just do what you want. And that brings us to the other step, that because the imagery is so high quality, you can zoom in to the most extreme details, and even the most esteemed curators, they can make new discoveries. Here you have a flower still life, and look at this, only like this small butterfly. You can imagine that the quality is extremely high. And at the same time, you have to realize that we look at an oil painting, 17th century, but so detailed. And I mean, the painting obviously is top quality, but also the imagery is top quality. So this is, I think, one of the success factors. If you do open the collection and share it with the world in this way, I mean, that's a tremendous way of connecting people in a very contemporary way with old masters like we do. And then the real fun starts, because it's not only a collection that you can open and explore by the name of the artist or other art historical names like Ruysdael or Romanticism or Cubism or whatever. No, we use very simple language like colors or square or streets or Amsterdam or any simple word that you can imagine. You can use the browser, the engine that is searching in that website. And if you, for instance, use the word red, then all the objects that have red in the description, they show up. And that really makes a complete new way of engaging with the collection. Collection of the Rijksmuseum is over 1.1 million objects. So you can imagine that anything that has red, it's enormous. So you have netsuke's, you have paintings, you have glass, you have photography, etc., etc. Or you can make also very crazy combinations like moustache. If you're interested in moustaches in the collection of the Rijksmuseum, you push in moustache, and there they come, all the moustaches in the collection. Many of them. And at the same time, thanks to these virtual possibilities, I'm very interested in, and I really stick to the authenticity of objects. I believe in the power of the authentic artwork, because people always have loved to see the original work. And though we get more and more possibilities thanks to the internet and virtual reality and VR and whatever, this shows, it's a small drawing from the opening moment of the Rijksmuseum in 1806, that people have always loved art, like they do today, as you can see. And the authentic spirit, the possibility of to engage with authentic objects, I think that is the key for success in the museums, because museums are the treasure troves of authentic objects. And I think that we are more and more interested in the authentic experience, so to say, and museums can offer that. So to end up, I am still very happy that schoolmaster took me to the Rijksmuseum with this bus of bouncy young kids. It was a life-changing moment for me, although at that time I didn't realize it. But later on, I still remember that moment very strong, and especially when I look at this painting, going to the Rijksmuseum, and I see exactly what people experience the way I experienced the Rijksmuseum the first time I was there. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that museums still are the gateways to time and beauty, and I hope to see you in the Rijksmuseum in the near future. Thank you very much.